All right.
Okay, I got one more runner up on honorable mention on that favorite song stuff. Been through the desert on a horse with no name.
I learned how to play that one on my guitar too.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
those old 70s more folksy songs and people, boy, that's mine and Lisa. It's a special place in our heart for that kind of stuff.
I love that kind of stuff too, to be honest with you. It's some of my favorite kind of
James
music.
Taylor.
Yeah, and I'd love to learn how to play some of those songs too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just good, like good for
Soulful.
the soul. It's
Yes.
like the chicken soup for the soul kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it is.
It just
How
feels
about
really good.
that Carol King song about you're so
I
far
love
away?
her.
Oh,
Oh God, that could
doesn't
make me
it?
cry just thinking about
Oh,
it.
yeah. Boy, there's
What a
such a
voice she
purity.
had.
Oh, so
And just and the nostalgia, like her voice, just brings me right back to the '70s. And I mean, I had a great growing up time and everything, and I just, it just brings me back to that time and just feel
yeah.
that was a good time, and the world was so different back then.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
perfect, that's for
You
sure.
know, I remember having this conversation with my mom recently about watching movies now and stuff. And it's like, to me, I think a movie has to be pre iPhone in order to be interesting, like a detective movie or
Mm,
superhero movies or something like Batman. And because all of a sudden now we got so much technology that none of this stuff is actually can be real anymore. Like, you wanted to do something. Well, you ask your phone, ask Google. you know, you want to look, there's Batman. I got him on video. His bat cave's over there. Well, his or DNA testing, hey, we got some
yeah.
Batman blood in. There's who he is. Um, Everything now technologically, it's not as interesting to your point about boy, and the pre-computers is way more interesting because it's more character. It's character development.
I agree with you. I love the Turner Classic Movie Channel, and it's
Oh,
really because of exactly what you just said.
mm-hmm.
I was watching a movie last night. It was an Alfred Hitchcock movie came on. I think it was called The Rope,
Mm.
and he develops these characters so well in all of his movies that it's riveting, And by the
Yeah.
end of the you feel at the end of the movie, you feel like you got something, like you're almost in awe, like you walk
Yeah.
around with your mouth open, like, and
Mm.
I think movies really struggle to do that right now. But there's still some good ones out there.
Yeah.
I like before COVID, I thought, okay, Hollywood's washed up. They're not
Mm.
putting out anything that I'm interested in, and I was wrong
Yeah.
because COVID forced me to watch these movies, as we've talked about before. And actually, there's some pretty good ones that are out there. You know what I saw? And I'll never remember the name of it, but you probably remember this guy. He's got a mental kind of situation, and he gets this girlfriend who's actually like a sex doll that he brings around. He dresses her up, and he's got a name for her, and he thinks she's
Ex Machina.
no, no,
L.
that wasn't it. It was like I can't remember what it was. Anyhow, it seemed like a really weird movie. I was like, I don't want to watch that. It's really too weird. And it came on the other night, and I started watching it. Well, turns out the whole town, they love this guy. They realize that he's got a problem, and rather
Mm.
than chastise him and everything, they kind of work with him to help him, and they accept this doll into their community. And
Okay, so it's an inanimate. It's not like an
yeah,
android. Okay,
it's not an android. It's like it's a sex doll, and he's got it like
I
it's
saw
very
that.
realistic looking, and he's got it all dressed up and everything. He has it all changed, but he's got a problem, but
Yeah,
rather
I
than
saw
throw him
that.
down rather than just be like you're sick, they help him, and it's
God, I don't remember that.
everyone in the community. It was about love, is what it was really about. Everyone in the community does everything to just help even though some find it offensive, some find it really weird, but they do these things like they were like, "Oh, she wants to volunteer at the hospital now." And he's like, "Oh, does she? Yeah, she does." And so this is how they wean her
Oh,
away from him, is that
mm,
she becomes like a politician and everything. She's got to be away from the house all the time. And then when he has a problem, he's like, "You're being selfish." Now, Amber, she wants to go out and live a life. You can't just, and like that's how the town is with him. And he's like, "Oh, you're right. You're right." And there's meanwhile there's this woman that's really in love with him, and it's actually really cool how it all works out in the end. I won't say what the end of it is,
sure.
but it's just a movie about love. It's kind of weird, but love is such a powerful force, and if you inject that the self-sacrificing kind of love into
Yeah.
a movie,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a winner.
No, that's a really poignant thing that you just said there. I kind of remember it. I'm sure I saw it. It's one of those movies that around Oscar time, they come out, all these indie movies kind of come out in December. And
Yeah, yeah.
to try to get those, and Lisa's really into that. So she drags me to these, uh, most of which I don't like at all. I think are really weird.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I remember that as being one of those. Like I don't even really remember it because I was just like, this is too weird.
Yeah, that's how I was too. And then I
Uh,
I I just happened to watch it, and I cried several times.
oh,
There's something about that kind of love, a story about love like that just gets me every time.
well, that's why those are the best movies. That's the purest thing in the world. We all want to
Yeah.
just get back to that state of love. And one of these days, I want to just talk more about near death experiences and stuff because I like to watch things about that and
Yeah.
learn as and it's the commonality. Everybody just says, "Oh, I was enveloped with this sense of unconditional love that I've
I've
never,
heard that. Yeah.
yeah, I've never felt." To me, that's God, that's heaven,
Yeah.
that's what they're
Yeah.
saying.
That's
It's
right. That's right.
consistent. It's consistent. So
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. I find that stuff fascinating.
Just like that, the whole power of unconditional love is
Yeah,
just, it's a beautiful thing,
yeah,
and there's so many stories that can be told around it, but the best movies always revolve around that. and
yeah.
uh and
Those
and I found,
lessons.
yeah, and I find that the older movies really were focused on that, but also, the so-called chick flicks,
Mhm.
um
You
they
say you like a,
they always revolve around that. Every single one
yes,
of them
they
does.
do, but the
They're hokey.
the premise is always the same. A man meets woman, they hate each other because of these things, they get on each other's nerves until a conflict arises where they find that together they can actually overcome these
It's
things
a
and live
formula.
happily. It's the total formula.
Have you
But
seen that one? I don't remember. I don't remember the name, but she knows that she's in a rom com, and she's like, "Oh, this is probably the part where they're gonna play the stupid collage." And then collage comes on, and he's running in
that
slow
sounds
motion.
great. I think I would like that. I
It
really
is a really good one, actually. It's
would.
really, the one was that the main woman character has to have this gay male friend.
Oh
There's always one
yeah.
of those in the movie
Yeah.
too, where he's
Yeah.
like her best friend or something, and
It's true.
they play up all those angles. It's like a spoof on rom-coms, but it's
I would love
still a
that movie.
rom-com. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's really good. It's really
Yeah,
good.
I would like that one. You said something a minute ago that I always have a hard time verbalizing just how infuriated I get with this cancel culture woke movement. And when we're talking about, well, unconditional love, when you can put that into a movie, and that's a winner every time. And of course, it's natural. It's our most natural state of being. It's what we all want to go back to when we die. The all of that, and that whole woke movement is all about hate. It's all about, there's no forgiveness. So the cancel
None.
culture,
No.
so nobody can be forgiven for anything. Everybody's guilty of everything until eventually they fall off their own cliff of their own making, And but the point is that it's so unnatural, and it's away from, it's the opposite of love. And it's the opposite of all the
Boy.
things that are surrounded there.
You know what's interesting about that, Barry? And we talked about how the Republicans have been demonized as Nazis,
Mhm.
and I was going through some things. But do you know when Hitler took over? one of the first things that he did was he took over the church. And not only did he take over the church, he replaced the cross with his picture.
Wow.
They rewrote the Bible, and
Wow.
they actually have a Nazi Bible. And one of the first premises in the Nazi Bible was, and now there is no forgiveness of sin.
Wow.
Isn't
Wow.
this an interesting thing that you've just related to the cancel culture?
No, without forgiveness, there's nothing but anxiety. And anxiety and love are complete opposites. You can't be in a state of love and have anxiety and vice versa. And the cancel culture is all about anxiety, you
You know
know?
what, Barry? You just said something. I got goosebumps actually. Love and anxiety. You know what the root of anxiety is, right?
Fear. Well, it is fear.
Fear, exactly.
And
And
it's
here's
living in the past, regrets of the past, or living in the future with fear of the future. That's what
think
it
about
is.
this. I have learned that the in the Bible, faith in God, the opposite of faith in God is fear, which is a form of faith in the devil. And you just
Interesting.
love is God is love.
Yes.
Fear comes from the devil. It's just a
Okay.
very interesting,
Makes sense.
you
Yes.
know what I mean? Like it says of God himself that God does not give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. You're saying the exact same thing, Barry.
Hmm. Wow.
Is that
Well, that all makes
there's
sense
this
to me.
opposite thing. There's a yin and a yang to this whole
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
so what we're seeing here in the media is this complete fear manufacturing machine.
Yeah.
And what's pouring out of our televisions on a daily basis is thick with fear, and we know where fear comes from. And we don't hear a lot about real love on television anymore. And isn't this an interesting time that we live in? And we just said it, we go back to those old movies, and what we're seeing is actually messages of love and building characters and how important people's personalities are now. Now
Hmm.
everything's fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like fake, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. I think that I haven't lost hope. I haven't lost hope. I really believe that people can see the contrast, and then they can choose for themselves. Is you know you brought it up early in the show. We're seeing. I saw some. We both saw some pretty wild statistics. I watched the five that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Had me watch, and self harm among young people is up
Yeah.
300%.
Yeah.
You've got the suicide rate that
Suicides.
is really crazy right now. I had something I wanted to tell you about the something I saw on the suicide rate. I know that's a really terrible subject, but it's something that's happening.
It's
And
important.
what we saw, this is before COVID, okay? That they had it's the annual suicide rate in the US is over 14 deaths per 100,000 population. I thought that was an interesting, and now obviously it's higher than that.
Yeah.
But I was looking at this whole COVID thing, and we shut down our whole society due to COVID. And I was looking at this whole thing that Newsom was talking about the opening up the games, and I saw some interesting statistics in here, and it was that San Francisco has the state's lowest daily infection rate among heavily populated counties at 3.5 cases per 100,000 residents. And it just goes on and on. It talks about Alameda County across the bay is relatively low at 6.3, and Los Angeles isn't far behind at 7.2. Okay, 7.2 cases of COVID per 100,000, but yet the suicide rate is 14 per
Mm.
100,000. They closed down the whole country for this other thing, cases, not deaths, cases, but you have the suicide rate, which doubles it, more than doubles that. And these are deaths. So it seems interesting to me that we would be so focused on COVID and not really focused on the suicide rate. And then I started looking at some of the reasons. Do you know that about half the suicides that take place are gun related?
Mm.
And do you also know that half of the gun deaths in the United States are suicides? So we're always hearing about this gun rights thing and all that kind of stuff, but half the people are dying of suicide. So it
Mhm.
seems like the root of the problem isn't necessarily guns. It seems to be mental health.
Oh, wait, for sure, for sure.
And so if we're pouring out all of this darkness and negativity through the media, it seems to me that those two things are highly related.
You're
And if we
right.
really want to do something, let's not take people's liberties away, or this whole cancel culture. That's not going to help. Or what's really going to help is to bring back goodness and
Mhm,
advertise that,
mhm.
send love out through the airwaves. The darker the airwaves are getting, the more people are falling into deep despair, depression, where suicide rates, self-harm. It seems to me that that's the where the linchpin of this whole thing is. And here in California, we're just getting more of this oppressive control. Like you said, you went down to Florida, you could feel the difference. This
Mhm.
darkness is happening, and it's being brought on by the media and our politics. They're working
That's
hand in hand.
They are. Boy, you hit the nail on the head. You went all the way to the top of this. And you're absolutely right about the mental health problem that we know that. You look outside in California with all the tents and everything. We know that there's a huge mental health problem going
Big
on there.
time.
The statistics that you just stated, sure. Do these people not care that our young people are completely depressed and unhappy? And I mean, I
Doesn't
know I've
seem
said
like
this
it.
my entire life is that I believe that starting in school, we need classes on personal development that teach you just how the basics of being a good human being. And I think they could do that without walking on anybody's religious rights. I really do.
I
But
think so
also
too.
teach you the importance of parenting and teaching just the basic right values so that you can raise a more mentally stable, happy kid. Happiness starts at home, you know?
Well, you know what, Barry? I agree with you. And at the same time, I'm seeing where that's been corrupted in the form of this whole, like you say, this woke kind of thing. What was it? Didn't Lisa have to go through some training recently where, what is it called? Diversity training. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's having to go through this now.
Yeah.
And even they're doing this in the schools now where they're teaching people not to be offensive to other people, and they're saying, because, and they're teaching them the same thing, that white people are inherently prejudiced, or racist. I
Mm.
mean, that seems to be the message that's coming out. And
Yep.
so I, I
Divide them up early.
I agree with what you're saying, and I also believe that there are people out there that their foundation of truth is so different than my foundation of truth that I wouldn't want them to teach my kids um, the goodness out of their foundation of truth,
Interesting.
because their foundation of truth, goodness, actually appears to be hate to me.
That's really interesting, Merle, because you're right. So it'd be corrupted by the woke movement.
Right, right. And
Mm.
the woke movement is actually being promoted as this
As the
bastion
right
of goodness and light. And
utopia and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so it all depends on our foundation of what's
yeah.
right and wrong. And right now we just don't agree. And so this is tearing at the fabric of our country right now because we can't agree on that. And you know, what's the answer? Well, that's a tough one.
It is. Well, I don't know. It seems like it's got to collapse on itself soon. That it's coming to a pinnacle. Because it just is so silly, so non-commonsensical, and to me obvious. It, as I said, do you want to continue living unhappily with all this anxiety, or do you want to start finding a more happy route? In other words, let go of this woke stuff, dividing people, condemning people. It's also negative. So I
Yeah,
feel
it
like it
is.
has to collapse on itself soon.
Well, either that or people just need to be sick and tired of being sick and tired and saying, you know what, we're done with this.
And you
Or
know
you know
what?
what, we're going. It seems to me that it's not the government that needs to take this back. It's society in general needs to take back our lives. We
Yeah.
need. we need to take, it's not going to be given back to us. We have to take it back. We need to start making a strong stand towards what's right and what's good and decent. We need to start loving one another. I think we need to start giving people the right to make a decision on if they're going to wear a mask or not. We shouldn't shame people for wearing masks. We shouldn't shame people for not wearing masks. It should be that we're adults and we can make that choice on our own because we are adults. No more of this. We're waiting for the government to do everything for us. Let's govern our own lives. Let's do what's right by our neighbor. These are the things that we've taken self-responsibility out of the entire equation. We want somebody else to do it for us. We got to do it for ourselves. Do the right thing. And the other thing too is enough of this white guilt. Black people are doing well. Slavery happened a long time ago.
In every culture.
Let's just look at
it's still going on today in Africa.
Let's just look at people as people instead of looking at their race. The last thing the thing I grew up knowing is that inside of everybody, we're exactly the same. We're the same color on the inside. We got the same color brains. We got the same color heart. We are the same. We are human beings. We're made from the same God. It's not like, just skin color means nothing. It's just part of our culture. That's all. Here in this country, more than any place else in the world, equality actually is happening.
Yeah.
And people need to, equality here in this country means people have the right to take personal responsibility of their lives and make what they want of it. They have that choice. If you're born into a poor family here, you have an opportunity to become rich. Lots of people have done it. And in other countries, you just don't, hey, whatever you're born into, that's your lot in life. That's how it's been in the world since day one until America. And we need to start being proud of what we have over here. I mean, we really do.
I know. The scary thing is where we're at today is completely predictable if you just follow other societies through history. And that's the thing that bothers me. It seems like we're watching ourselves drive off a cliff and there's nothing you could do about it.
I think you're right. And I think that the reason that I have hope is that I think that it's just like they say in AA, you got to hit rock bottom before you can actually start going up again. And it doesn't mean that we have to actually collapse and be non-existent and some other society comes in. We actually, with our form of government, we actually have a way to rise up out of this pit that we're in. And I think that's what makes us unlike any of the other countries of the past. I don't think they had that opportunity because of the way that their systems were set up. I still see that we have that opportunity here. It hasn't gone away yet. And I'm just praying that we can turn it around. And I think shows like this help that, Barry. I think we're doing our part as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. I watch a lot of YouTube videos more and more all the time from people that are getting it right. And I really do like that Crystal and Sagar.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, but Crystal Ball, she's pretty famous.
Yeah, she's got some good takes too. And
I have to admit, she does. There's obviously I don't agree with everything that she says. I think they're pretty good.
A lot of common sense there. We talked about one time before, like talking about having hope about our society is we have talked about before how, and it's always been America is a pendulum on a pendulum, and it's got to swing so far. It looks like there's no hope left, and then that's when we swing back the other way. So maybe we're getting to that because it sure seems. Yeah,
right. We certainly have a history of this, Barry. I mean, it's just you think about like where we've been. Our whole history from the get-go has been. It looks like it's over. Oh wait, it's not over.
True. Hey, I forgot to ask you. Did you want to promote your IBM TV thing? on the show? I forgot about it.
I mean, I purposely left that out because I didn't know if that was appropriate or not.
No, that's
But yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But
So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's it's called Cyber Talk. Of course, Rex actually started Cyber Talk, and he has all this research that he does on different things that have to do with just cybersecurity and our rights and all that kind of stuff. But he felt like it was kind of boring for him to just come on and talk about the subject. And he had come on our show and been interviewed by us and thought that it went a lot better with his subject matter when you can interact with the subject matter. So he was talking to me about it and saying, hey, you want to come on and do this with me? And I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. I'd like to try that. The
it's
good
tough
news is
subject matter.
well, here's the good news is, Rex is a journalist, and so he's very into the research part of this and everything, and then he just feeds me stuff, and I just look at it, and all I really got to do is interview him, and he's got the subject matter. But our whole motto is, finding the truth. And this past episode that we did had to do with the Texas storm, and was renewable energy to blame for the power failure down there. And of course, me being a conservative, I'm like, oh, green energy, ooh, that's what it was. And the research showed that, well, green energy was a part of it, but that wasn't the whole thing. It wasn't the whole story. And so that's what the last episode was. And we covered what actually all the factors. There was a multitude of factors. One of them you even said on the show,
They
which
didn't
was
winterize.
they didn't winterize the generators, and they didn't winterize us. And the two that were bad was especially the gas generators, and then of course the generators that are in the windmills to keep them so they don't freeze up. But when the wind and solar tanked, then gas needed to come in and fill the gap. And because they hadn't winterized those generators, they just didn't have the capacity to
Domino
fill
effect.
the gap. There were other factors as well that we talk about during the show. It's very interesting. And the next show is going to be about who's behind this whole green energy deal, the billionaires that are pushing this, the factories that are supporting the Green Deal, that are all next to water supplies and rivers that are pumping sludge and trash into our rivers. So green isn't so green. We'll learn all about that in the next episode. Pretty cool stuff, though.
Sounds interesting. How long is the show? Each show?
About a half hour. So
okay.
Short and sweet.
That's action packed.
Yeah. It's you're in and out.
Yeah.
And that's going to be on and it's on IBM TV, and of course it's on YouTube and all these other venues as well. But it's IBM TV, which, by the way, they're working very slowly, but they want over 50 starting over on their network.
I've checked it out just a little bit. I'd like to know more about their format, but
I'm going to get a meeting eventually with one of the founders and you and I to discuss this, and we'll learn about it, because the information is just trickling in. They are interested, and I think that it would be fun. And they're not in control. We would be totally in control. Cool. It might be a lot of fun.
Cool. I'm definitely looking for opportunities, and even, talking about your show a bit. I think it's cross promoting.
I think so too. Yeah, and Rex would love to come back on our show again too, and would like to have you on his show, Cyber Talk, as well, so we can kind of
I think that he's right in the thick of some of the most important stuff going on.
I think he is too.
But like I said, dude, it's heady. It's hard. I mean, I've watched our shows with him. It's tough to lay it out there in a half hour or so in a way that people don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why the interactive part is, I think, very important. And so and turning it more into a discussion rather than here's a ton of facts right here.
Yeah.
It's more digestible that way. And of course, we try to make it fun. We laugh and stuff like that. When you're by yourself, it's hard to be like that. So, but what we have, and this chemistry that we have, is really what people are tune into. And then they hear the subject matter. that's kind of what Rex is wanting to do on Cyber Talk.
Cool. Very cool. All right, bud. I have to get going.
So do I.
All right. Yeah. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Hey, glad to have you back. Welcome
Yeah.
back home and everything. Glad the sun is out for you and all, just
Yeah.
like you said, and on to springtime.
So fun. I was really, I got to say, as much as I was enjoying being in Sarasota and having a lot of fun, I was really looking forward to doing this podcast.
I'm always looking forward to it, but it's so cool to hear you say that after being in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, bud. Love you.
Later on, man. Love you too. You too.